Captain Vex Thorn stood on the bridge of his warship, looking out at the stars with the confidence of a predator who had never met his match. His massive frame cast a shadow across the control panels as his clawed hands moved over the ship's weapons systems. At 8 feet tall with natural armor plating covering his dark blue skin, Vex was the perfect example of Korthak's superiority. Razor-sharp claws extended from his fingertips and his yellow eyes could see clearly in almost total darkness. The Korthak had ruled the galaxy for 300 years, and for good reason. Their homeworld of Korth Prime was a nightmare that would kill most species within hours. Volcanoes erupted constantly, filling the air with poisonous gases. The ground shook with earthquakes that could split mountains in half. Creatures with teeth like swords hunted in packs, and the very plants could inject deadly venom into anything that touched them. Yet the Korthak called this hellish world home. They had evolved to survive where nothing else could live. Their thick skin could resist acid rain and extreme heat. Their powerful muscles could crush steel, and their keen senses could detect danger from miles away. When other species in the galaxy needed protection from pirates or hostile worlds, they called the Korthak. Vex had led his strike team through 17 successful missions, conquering worlds that other species could not even visit. His crew respected him not just for his size and strength, but for his tactical mind. He could plan battles that would make enemies surrender before the first shot was fired. His reputation extended across every civilized world in the Federation. The Galactic Federation was made up of many species, but none as tough as the Korthak. The Zephyrians were tall and graceful, with bodies that looked like they were made of living crystal. They were beautiful and intelligent, but so fragile that a strong wind could shatter their limbs. They lived on worlds with gentle breezes and perfect temperatures, creating art and music that filled the soul with wonder. The Neptari came from ocean worlds where they swam in warm, safe waters. Their blue-green skin was smooth and soft, and they breathed through gills that worked only in their special atmosphere. When they traveled to other worlds, they needed environmental suits filled with their home water. They were peaceful traders, who had never fought a war in their entire history. The Chitauri were insect-like beings with 4 arms and compound eyes. They were excellent at working together and could build amazing structures in record time, but they could only survive in very specific conditions. Too hot or cold, and they would die. The wrong mixture of gases in the air, and their entire colonies would collapse. All of these species looked to the Korthak for protection. When dangerous worlds needed to be explored, the Korthak went first. When hostile aliens threatened Federation space, the Korthak ships responded. When peace talks needed to be backed up by military force, Korthak warriors stood guard. They were the galaxy's apex predators, the ultimate survivors, the only species tough enough to handle the universe's worst challenges. This morning, Vex had received new orders from Federation Command. Long-range sensors had detected a new species in an unexplored part of the galaxy. The beings called themselves humans, and they came from a planet designated as Earth. Initial scans showed that Earth was another death world, similar to Korth Prime but with different dangers. The planet had extreme weather patterns that could change from freezing cold to burning hot in a matter of hours. Massive storms with winds strong enough to level cities moved across the surface regularly. The gravity was significant, and the atmosphere contained gases that would be poisonous to most Federation species. Ocean covered most of the planet, with depths that would crush even Korthak bones. Most interesting to Federation scientists was the variety of predators that lived on Earth. The planet seemed to be covered with creatures designed to kill. Some were massive, others were tiny but deadly. Some hunted in packs, others stalked alone. The scans showed that these humans had somehow survived on a world where everything was trying to eat them. Beck studied the preliminary data about human physiology with growing confidence. They were much smaller than Korthak, standing only about 6 feet tall on average. Their skin looked thin and soft without any natural armor. They had no claws, no fangs, no natural weapons at all. Their senses seemed limited compared to Korthak. Abilities. They appeared to be one of the weakest species the Federation had ever encountered. The mission seemed routine. Vex would approach Earth with his standard first contact protocol. He would demonstrate Korthak military superiority to establish the proper relationship. The humans would realize they needed protection, and another species would join the Federation under Korthak guardianship. It was a pattern that had worked perfectly for centuries. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Crix Vanol, approached with the final mission briefing. Crix was younger than Vex, but equally deadly, with scars from a dozen battles marking his armored hide. He had served under Vex for 5 years and had never questioned his captain's judgment. "The ship is ready for departure, Captain," Crix reported. "All weapon systems are charged and functional. The crew is prepared for standard first contact procedures." Vex nodded, his claws clicking against the metal railing. "What do our analysts think of these humans?" "They appear to be remarkably weak, sir. Our biologists cannot understand how they survived on such a dangerous world. They have no natural defenses, no enhanced physical capabilities, no obvious evolutionary advantages. They seem to rely entirely on primitive technology." "Primitive technology?" Vex asked. "Chemical rockets, basic energy weapons, simple communication systems, nothing that would pose a threat to our vessels. Our tactical computer estimates we could conquer their entire world with a single ship if necessary." Vex smiled, showing teeth that could bite through steel. "Then this should be a pleasant assignment. Set course for the Sol system. We will bring these humans into the Federation's protection before they harm themselves." The Korthak warship engaged its faster-than-light engines and disappeared into the void between stars. Behind them, Korth Prime continued its eternal struggle between fire and ice, creating the warriors who had never met their match. Ahead of them waited a small blue world where the greatest predators in galactic history had been quietly preparing for this moment their entire lives. As they traveled through space, Vex reviewed everything the Federation knew about Deathworlds. A true Deathworld was defined as a planet where survival required constant vigilance and superior physical capabilities. The native species had to be tough, aggressive, and adaptable. They needed natural weapons, enhanced senses, and the ability to withstand extreme conditions. The Korthak checked every box on this list. They were the ultimate product of Deathworld evolution, shaped by millions of years of surviving the unsurvivable. Every other species they had encountered from Deathworlds had been similar: large, strong, well-armed by nature, and respectful of Korthak superiority. These humans would be no different. They might be survivors, but they were clearly the weakest Deathworld species ever discovered. They would need Korthak protection more than any species before them. Vex looked forward to adding another easy victory to his record. The captain had no way of knowing that he was about to encounter a species that had turned weakness into the ultimate strength. A species that had survived not by becoming the deadliest predator on their world, but by becoming so adaptable that they could survive anything. A species that had spent millions of years learning that the best way to win a fight was to change the rules completely. Earth was waiting, and humanity was ready to teach the galaxy what it truly meant to be from a Deathworld. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the command center of the USS Defiance, watching the alien ship approach Earth's outer edge. The massive vessel was unlike anything humanity had ever seen, but Jake showed no fear. His weathered face remained calm as he studied the tactical displays. At 52 years old, he had commanded Earth's defense forces for 8 years, and he had prepared for this moment his entire career. The alien ship was enormous, easily 10 times larger than Earth's biggest warship. Its dark metal hull bristled, with weapon systems that could probably destroy entire cities. Any reasonable species would have immediately surrendered when faced with such overwhelming firepower. But humans had never been accused of being reasonable. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the alien vessel," reported Communications Officer Danny Chen. "They're broadcasting in multiple languages. Our computers are working on translation." Jake nodded. "Put it through when you have something." The translation came through with mechanical precision. The alien captain was demanding immediate surrender and compliance with something called Federation protocols. The tone was arrogant and dismissive, treating humanity like children who needed to be taught proper behavior. Jake had heard similar attitudes from bullies throughout his military career, and his response was always the same: Send them our standard first contact greeting, Jake ordered. Tell them we welcome peaceful discussion, but will defend ourselves if threatened. The alien response was swift and predictable. A low-powered energy beam lanced out from their ship and struck mining station Omega-7, one of humanity's outer system facilities. The beam was clearly meant to be a warning shot, demonstrating superior technology without causing major damage. It was a classic intimidation tactic that probably worked on most species. Unfortunately for the aliens, humans were not most species. All units, this is Admiral Morrison. Jake broadcast on all military frequencies. The aliens have fired on our facility. Consider this an act of war. Execute Defense Plan Alpha immediately. Squadron leader Lisa Parker had been waiting for this moment. Her fighter wing had been positioned in the asteroid belt for 3 days, hidden among the rocks and metal debris. When the alien ship fired its warning shot, Lisa and her pilots moved with the precision of a hunting pack. Viper Squadron, this is Viper 1, Lisa spoke into her helmet radio. Light them up. 20 human fighters emerged from their hiding places and attacked the alien ship from 6 different directions. Their weapons were primitive compared to alien technology, but they were used with a tactical brilliance that caught the enemy completely off guard. The humans had studied the alien ship during its approach, identifying weak points and defensive gaps that their enemies did not even know existed. Fighter pilot Danny Rodriguez rolled his craft between 2 alien weapon systems, firing precisely targeted bursts at what appeared to be sensor arrays. His wingman Alex Thompson followed close behind, destroying what looked like communication equipment. Both pilots were laughing as they dodged return fire that should have terrified any sane person. "Hey, Alex, did you see that shot?" Danny called, out as a plasma bolt missed his fighter by inches. "These guys couldn't hit Earth if they were standing on it." "Focus on the mission, Danny," Alex replied, but he was grinning too. "Save the comedy show for after we win." The alien ship's defensive systems were designed to handle large enemy vessels in traditional space combat. They were not prepared for small, fast fighters that attacked like Earth's ancient fighter planes. The humans used every trick they had, learned from centuries of aerial warfare, treating the battle like a deadly game they had been playing their entire lives. Ground control operator Katie Williams coordinated the attack from Earth's military command center. She tracked 20 different fighters while monitoring alien movements and managing supply lines. Most species would have been overwhelmed by the complexity, but Katie handled it while drinking coffee and making casual conversation with her colleagues. "Viper 7, you have 2 alien fighters closing on your position," Katie reported calmly. "Suggest you use the debris field for cover." "Copy that, ground control," came the reply. "These alien pilots are pretty good, but they fight like they're in a computer simulation. No creativity at all." Captain Vex Thorne watched in growing disbelief as his superior technology was defeated by inferior weapons and impossible tactics. The humans fought like they had no fear of death. They took risks that would have made veteran Korthak warriors pause. When faced with overwhelming firepower, they attacked instead of retreating. When outnumbered, they used their environment as a weapon. The human fighters moved in patterns that seemed random but were actually carefully coordinated. They communicated constantly, sharing information and adjusting tactics in real time. Each pilot appeared to know exactly what every other pilot was thinking. It was like watching a single organism with 20 different bodies. "Sir, our primary weapons are offline," Lieutenant Crix reported. "These humans have disabled our targeting systems and damaged our main guns. How is this possible?" Vex had no answer. According to every tactical manual in the Federation, this battle should have been over in minutes. The humans should have surrendered immediately when faced with superior technology. Instead, they had turned the fight into something that resembled the chaotic battles of Korth Prime, where survival depended on adaptability rather than raw power. The human admiral's voice came over the communication system again, but this time, the tone was different. Instead of fear or desperation, Jake Morrison sounded almost bored. "Alien vessel, this is Admiral Morrison of Earth Defense Command. Your weapons are disabled and your ship is surrounded. We have no desire to destroy you, but we will if you continue hostile actions." I suggest we arrange a formal meeting to discuss this situation like civilized beings. Vex looked around his bridge. Half his systems were offline. His crew was confused and demoralized, and his reputation as the Federation's greatest military commander was in ruins. These humans had defeated him using technology that should have been useless against Korthak warships. "Open a channel," he ordered reluctantly. "This is Captain Vex Thorn of the Korthak Federation Navy. I agree to a temporary ceasefire for formal first contact." 2 hours later, Vex found himself sitting in a small room aboard the human space station that orbited Earth. Across from him sat Admiral Morrison and a human female who introduced herself as Helen Garcia, Earth's diplomatic officer. Both humans appeared completely relaxed, as if disabling an alien warship was something they did every day. Helen poured something called coffee into small cups and offered one to Vex. The Korthak captain studied the dark liquid suspiciously. On most worlds, sharing food or drink with aliens was considered dangerous. These humans seemed to think it was a normal part of conversation. "So," Admiral Morrison said, settling back in his chair, "let's talk about why you fired on our mining station. In human culture, that's generally considered an act of war. I'm hoping there was some kind of misunderstanding." Vex struggled to find words. Everything about this situation was wrong. He was supposed to be the dominant force in this meeting. The humans should have been begging for his protection. Instead, he felt like a student who had failed an important test. "It was a demonstration of superior firepower," Vex explained. "Standard Federation protocol for establishing proper relationships with primitive species." Helen raised an eyebrow. "Primitive? That's interesting. What makes you think we're primitive? Your technology is clearly inferior to ours. Your weapons are chemical-based, your ships are slow, and your defenses should have been easily overwhelmed." Admiral Morrison smiled, and Vex realized it was not a friendly expression. "Captain Thorn, I think you've made a fundamental error in judgment. You've confused simple technology with inferior capability. Humans learned long ago that the best weapon is not always the most advanced one. Sometimes the best weapon is the one your enemy doesn't expect." Vex was beginning to understand that he had encountered something completely new. These humans had not survived their death world by becoming bigger and stronger like the Korthak. They had survived by becoming smarter and more adaptable. They had turned their apparent weakness into a tactical advantage that no Federation species had ever faced. "Perhaps," Helen suggested diplomatically, "we should start over with proper introductions. We're very interested in learning about your Federation, and I suspect you might want to know more about humanity before you make any final judgments about our capabilities." As Vex looked into the calm, confident faces of these strange beings, he realized that everything he thought he knew about the galaxy was about to change. These humans were not another weak species needing protection. They were something else entirely, and the implications terrified him more than any battle he had ever fought. Dr. Maria Santos walked through the corridors of Earth's orbital research station, with Captain Vex Thorn and Lieutenant Crix following behind her. The two Korthak warriors looked uncomfortable in the smaller, human-sized hallways, their massive frames forcing them to duck under doorways and move carefully to avoid damaging equipment. Maria paid no attention to their obvious discomfort as she led them toward the main observation deck. "Welcome to Research Station Alpha," Maria said cheerfully. "We built this place to study Earth from orbit and conduct experiments that might be dangerous on the planet's surface. It's also where we bring visitors who want to learn about human civilization." Vex studied the human scientist with growing confusion. She stood barely 5.5 feet tall, with soft skin and no visible natural weapons. Her brown hair was tied back in a simple style, and she wore thin clothing that would not protect her from even minor physical damage. Yet she moved with the confidence of an apex predator, showing no fear of the two deadly aliens walking beside her. "Dr. Santos," Vex said carefully, "your admiral mentioned that Earth is classified as a death world. How exactly do humans survive on such a dangerous planet?" Maria smiled and gestured toward a large window that showed Earth rotating slowly below them. The planet looked beautiful from space, with blue oceans and white clouds creating a peaceful scene. But Vex's enhanced vision could see the massive storm systems moving across the surface, weather patterns that would destroy most Federation worlds. That's an interesting question, Maria replied. I suppose the simple answer is that we don't just survive on Earth, we thrive on it. Let me show you what I mean. She led them to a control panel and activated a holographic display showing Earth's surface. The image zoomed in on a mountain range where small figures could be seen moving up steep cliff faces. Vex realized with shock that these were humans, climbing mountains that would challenge even Korthak's strength. This is Mount Everest, Maria explained casually. It's nearly 30,000 feet high, and the air at the top is too thin for humans to breathe normally. The temperature can drop to 60 degrees below zero, and the wind can reach over 200 miles per hour. Humans climb it for fun. Crix made a choking sound. For fun? Why would anyone voluntarily expose themselves to such danger? Because it's there, Maria said, as if this explained everything. Humans have always been drawn to challenges. We see something difficult or dangerous and we want to conquer it. It's just how we're built. The display changed to show humans diving deep into Earth's oceans. The pressure at these depths would crush Korthak bones. Yet the humans moved through the water with ease using simple breathing equipment. Some were swimming with creatures that looked like they could swallow a human whole. Those are great white sharks, Maria noted. They're one of Earth's apex predators with teeth designed to tear through flesh and bone. Some humans like to swim with them without any protection, just to see what it feels like. Vex stared at the display in disbelief. These sharks hunt humans? Sometimes, Maria admitted. But humans hunt sharks too. We've been so effective at it that many shark species are nearly extinct. Turns out that when humans decide something is a threat, we're very good at making it not a threat anymore. She led them to another section of the station where biologist Peter Johnson was waiting with more displays. Peter was a tall, thin human with gentle eyes and a soft voice. But when he began describing Earth's predators, Vex realized that this peaceful-looking man was discussing creatures that would terrify Korthak children. Earth has an interesting variety of dangerous animals, Peter said conversationally. We have bears that can weigh over 1,000 pounds and run faster than most humans. We have big cats that can kill prey much larger than themselves. We have snakes with venom that can drop an adult human in minutes. We have spiders, scorpions, crocodiles, wolves, and hundreds of other species that consider humans to be food. How do you survive with so many predators? Crix asked. Peter smiled. We studied them. We learned how they hunt, how they fight, how they think. Then we became better at all of those things. Most of Earth's dangerous animals are either extinct or living in small protected areas where we allow them to exist. Humans became the ultimate predator by being smarter than everything that tried to eat us. The tour continued to a section where Security Chief Tom Baker was demonstrating human combat techniques. Tom was a muscular man with scars on his arms, and a relaxed attitude that reminded Vex of veteran Korthak warriors. But when Tom began showing fighting methods, Vex realized that human warfare was something completely different from anything in the galaxy. Human martial arts developed from studying animals, Tom explained as he moved through a series of fighting poses. We watched how tigers attack, how snakes strike, how eagles hunt. Then we created fighting systems that copied the best techniques from dozens of different predators. Tom demonstrated moves that seemed to flow like water, then suddenly became as deadly as lightning. His hands moved in ways that could break bones or stop hearts. His feet could strike with enough force to shatter stone. Most disturbing to Vex was the fact that Tom was clearly holding back, showing only a fraction of what human combat skills could accomplish. Of course, most humans never need to use these techniques, Tom added. We developed weapons that made hand-to-hand combat mostly unnecessary. Humans are very good at making tools that multiply our natural abilities. The next stop was a meeting with historian Dr. Rachel Martinez, who had prepared a presentation about human military history. Rachel was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes, but the stories she told made Vex's blood run cold. Humans have been fighting wars for our entire recorded history, Rachel explained, showing images of ancient battles. We started with simple weapons like spears and bows, then gradually developed more effective ways to kill each other. By the time we reached modern technology, we had created weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. The display showed weapons that could level mountains, poison that could kill millions, and diseases that humans had created specifically to use against other humans. Rachel described something called nuclear warfare, where humans had built bombs powerful enough to destroy their entire planet, then pointed these weapons at their own cities to prevent wars. Wait, Vex interrupted. You created weapons that could destroy your own world? Several times over, Rachel confirmed. We called it mutually assured destruction. The idea was that if everyone could destroy everyone else, then no one would start a war because everyone would die. It actually worked pretty well for keeping the peace. Crix was staring at the display in horror. You threatened to kill your entire species to prevent smaller wars? It seemed logical at the time, Rachel said with a shrug. Humans are very practical about survival. If the choice is between a small war and total destruction, most people choose to avoid both. The final stop was a meeting with environmental scientist Dr. Amy Collins, who explained how humans had changed their planet to suit their needs. Amy was enthusiastic about her work, describing with obvious pride how humanity had reshaped Earth's climate, geography, and biology. Humans are incredibly adaptable, Amy explained. When we encountered problems, we didn't evolve to handle them. We changed the problems instead. Too cold? We created heating systems. Too hot? We invented air conditioning. Not enough food? We developed agriculture and created new species of plants and animals that produced more nutrition. She showed images of vast cities built in places that should have been uninhabitable. Humans lived in frozen wastelands, burning deserts, and toxic industrial zones. They had even built settlements underwater and in the vacuum of space. But here's the interesting part, Amy continued. After we made Earth more comfortable, we started making it dangerous again on purpose. We created extreme sports, dangerous jobs, and challenging environments because humans need a certain amount of risk to be happy. If life becomes too safe, we get bored and start looking for trouble. Vex looked at the displays showing humans jumping out of aircraft, racing vehicles at deadly speeds, and exploring active volcanoes. These beings had conquered their death world so completely that they had to create new dangers to keep themselves entertained. Dr. Collins, Vex said slowly, what would you say is the most dangerous predator on Earth? Amy thought for a moment, then smiled and pointed to a mirror on the wall. That would be humans, Captain. We're our own worst enemy, and that's what made us the ultimate survivors. Every other species on Earth had to worry about external threats. Humans had to survive, each other, and that made us better at everything. As the Korthak delegation returned to their ship, Vex found himself questioning everything he had believed about death worlds and survival. The humans had not become strong by fighting their environment. They had become adaptable by making their environment fight itself. They had turned their entire planet into a training ground for becoming the most dangerous species in the galaxy, and they had done it so casually that they considered it normal. For the first time in his life, Captain Vex Thorn understood what it meant to be truly afraid. The emergency alert came through while Captain Vex Thorn was still trying to process everything he had learned about humanity. The distress signal originated from Zarian 7, a mining colony at the edge of Federation space. Vex recognized the transmission code immediately. It was from his own reinforcement team that had been sent to the planet 3 weeks earlier. Captain, we're receiving a priority distress call, Lieutenant Crix reported, his voice tight with concern. It's from Commander Zax Morvek on Zarian 7. The colony is under attack and requesting immediate assistance. Vex moved quickly to the communication console. Zarian 7 was one of the most hostile worlds in Federation space, a planet so dangerous that only elite Korthak units could operate there. If Morvek's team was in trouble, the situation was worse than anything the Federation had faced in decades. The transmission was broken and filled with static, but Morvek's desperate voice came through clearly enough. This is Commander Morvek. To any Federation vessel, Zarian 7 colony is overrun. The crystalline predators have evolved new attack patterns. My team is dead. Repeat, my team is dead. Survivors are trapped in Bunker Complex 7 with failing life support. We have maybe 18 hours before total system failure. Vex felt his blood turn cold. Morvek commanded 40 of the Federation's most experienced Korthak warriors. If they had been wiped out, then whatever was happening on Zirion 7 was beyond anything the galaxy had seen before. Admiral Jake Morrison had been listening to the transmission from the human command center. His weathered face showed no emotion as he processed the tactical situation, but his eyes held the calculating look of a predator evaluating prey. "Captain Thorne," Jake said over the communication link, "my ship and crew are ready to assist with this rescue mission. We can be ready to depart within the hour." Vex stared at the human admiral in disbelief. "Admiral Morrison, you do not understand the nature of Zirion 7. The planet's surface temperature changes from -200 to +300 degrees Fahrenheit in a matter of hours. The atmosphere is a mixture of sulfur compounds that will eat through most environmental suits. The gravity is twice what your species evolved to handle. Even with full protective gear, most Federation species die within hours of landing." "Sounds challenging," Jake replied with what appeared to be genuine interest. "What about these crystalline predators your commander mentioned? They are native life forms that grow from the planet's mineral deposits. They can slice through Korthak armor like it was paper. They hunt in coordinated groups and seem to learn from each encounter. Commander Morvek's team was specifically trained to handle them, and they were still overwhelmed." Jake nodded thoughtfully. "Well, Captain, it sounds like your people need help and we're offering it. Unless you have a better plan?" Vex had no better plan. The nearest Korthak reinforcements were 6 days away, and the survivors on Zirion 7 would be dead long before. Help arrived. As much as he hated to admit it, the humans were the only option for a rescue mission. "Very well," Vex said reluctantly, "but I must warn you that this will likely be a suicide mission. Zirion 7 has killed more Korthak warriors than any other world in Federation space." "Understood," Jake replied. "We'll meet you at the coordinates in 4 hours." Marine Colonel Steve Davis stood in the USS Defiance's equipment bay, watching his team prepare for what should have been an impossible mission. Steve was a compact man with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen too much combat. At 45 years old, he had led human military operations on 12 different worlds, but never one as hostile as Zirion 7. "All right, people," Steve addressed his team. "We're going to a world that makes Antarctica look like a tropical vacation. The locals are crystal monsters that can cut through tank armor, and we have less than 18 hours to find survivors in a bunker complex the size of a small city." Demolitions expert Lisa Chang checked her equipment with practiced efficiency. Lisa was small and quiet, but she could make anything explode in exactly the way she wanted it to. Her specialty was turning environmental hazards into tactical advantages, a skill that had saved human lives on a dozen worlds. "Colonel, I've been studying the geological surveys of Zirion 7, Lisa reported. "The crystalline formations are actually quite brittle at certain frequencies. If we can create the right kind of vibrations, we might be able to bring down entire sections of their formations." Medic Dr. Tony Rodriguez was reviewing the biological data on Korthak physiology. Tony had served with human forces for 8 years and had become expert at treating alien injuries under combat conditions. His calm demeanor under pressure had earned him respect from soldiers across multiple species. "Sir, the Korthak survivors will need specialized medical attention," Tony said. "Their physiology is tough, but prolonged exposure to Zirion 7's atmosphere can cause internal bleeding that's hard to detect. I've prepared emergency treatments, but we'll need to get them off planet quickly." Reconnaissance specialist Jackie Turner was studying tactical maps of the planet's surface. Jackie was tall and lean with the sharp eyes of someone who had spent years learning to see what others missed. Her job was to find safe paths through impossible terrain, and she had never failed to get her team home alive. "The good news is that the crystalline predators seem to avoid certain mineral formations," Jackie reported. "The bad news is that those formations are located in areas with the worst environmental conditions. We'll have to choose between fighting the monsters or fighting the planet." Steve nodded as he reviewed the mission parameters one final time. Every logical analysis said this mission was impossible. The environmental conditions would kill most humans within hours. The predators had destroyed a team of elite alien warriors, The time limit was impossibly short. It was exactly the kind of mission that humans specialized in. Remember, people, we're not trying to conquer this planet. We're just trying to get in, grab the survivors, and get out. Fast, quiet, and efficient. Any questions? Just one, sir, Lisa said with a slight smile. Are we going to tell the aliens how we plan to do this or let it be a surprise? Let's keep it interesting, Steve replied. I have a feeling they're going to learn something new about human military doctrine today. The joint human Korthak fleet arrived at Zirion 7 after a tense 4-hour journey. Captain Vex watched from his ship's bridge as the humans made their final preparations. Everything about their approach was wrong according to standard Federation tactical doctrine. They were moving too fast, taking too many risks, and treating the mission like it was just another challenging assignment. The planet below them looked like a vision of hell. The surface was covered with jagged crystal formations that glowed with internal heat. Massive storms raged across continents, and the very air shimmered with toxic gases. It was a world where even Korthak warriors moved, carefully and died frequently. Human vessel, this is Captain Thorne, Vex transmitted. Our sensors show that the crystalline predators have surrounded Bunker Complex 7. There are at least 200 of them in the immediate area, with more arriving constantly. I strongly recommend we abort this mission and wait for proper reinforcements. Thanks for the intel, Captain, came Steve's voice from the human dropship. We're beginning our descent now. Maintain orbit and be ready for rapid evacuation when we return with your people. When you return? Vex asked. Colonel Davis, you cannot possibly survive on that planet's surface for the time required to reach the bunker complex. Watch and learn, Captain, Steve replied, and the human ship disappeared into Zirion 7's toxic atmosphere. What happened next changed everything Captain Vex Thorne thought he knew about warfare. The humans didn't try to fight the planet's hostile environment. They used it as a weapon. When crystalline predators attacked their landing zone, Lisa Chang triggered carefully placed explosives that caused an avalanche of unstable mineral formations. The creatures that had torn through Korthak armor were crushed by their own planet's geology. When extreme temperature changes threatened to overcome their environmental suits, the humans simply moved faster. They covered ground at a pace that should have been impossible in such hostile conditions, using the planet's dangerous weather patterns to mask their approach to the bunker complex. Jackie Turner led them through terrain that should have been impassable, finding paths between crystal formations that no Korthak warrior would have attempted. When predators tried to ambush them, the humans turned the ambush around, using the creature's own hunting instincts against them. Most disturbing to Vex was the casual way the humans discussed their tactics. They treated the deadly environment like a puzzle to be solved rather than a threat to be feared. They turned every danger into an advantage, every obstacle into an opportunity. Dragon team to base, came Steve's voice over the radio, calm and professional despite being in the middle of what should have been certain death. We've reached the bunker complex and made contact with survivors. Beginning evacuation procedures. Now, estimate 20 minutes until extraction. 20 minutes later, the human dropship emerged from Zirion 7's atmosphere carrying 12 Korthak survivors who should have been dead. The rescue had been executed with surgical precision, turning an impossible mission into a textbook example of human military efficiency. 6 months after the Zirion 7 rescue, the galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. Word of the human military capabilities had spread through every Federation world, carried by traders, diplomats, and the Korthak survivors, who could not stop talking about what they had witnessed. The species that everyone had dismissed as weak primitives were now being discussed in hushed tones as the most dangerous beings the galaxy had ever seen. Captain Vex Thorne stood in his new office on Haven Station, a neutral world that had become the center of an unprecedented experiment in interspecies cooperation. Outside his window, he could see human and Korthak soldiers training together in exercises that would have been unthinkable just months earlier. The sight still disturbed him, but he was learning to accept many disturbing truths about the universe. General Patricia Lee entered the office with her usual brisk efficiency. The human military leader had been appointed to oversee the integration program, and she had approached the task with the same practical determination that humans brought to every challenge. At 58 years old, Patricia had commanded forces on 6 different worlds and had never lost a battle. "Captain Thorne," Patricia said, settling into a chair that had been specially built to accommodate both human and Korthak physiology, "I have the latest reports from the training programs. Your officers are adapting well to human tactical doctrine, though some of them are still struggling with the psychological aspects." Vex nodded grimly. The hardest part of working with humans was not learning their techniques, but accepting their completely different approach to survival. Korthak warriors were trained to rely on their natural advantages: superior strength, enhanced senses, and thick armor that could resist most weapons. Humans taught tactics that assumed you were smaller, weaker, and more vulnerable than your enemies. "The concept of using weakness as strength continues to confuse my officers," Vex admitted. "Commander Crix asked me yesterday how humans can win battles by pretending to lose them. I could not give him a satisfactory answer." Patricia smiled. "It's not about pretending to lose, it's about making your enemy think they understand your capabilities when they actually don't. Humans learned long ago that the most dangerous mistake you can make is underestimating your opponent. So we make sure our opponents always underestimate us." She activated a holographic display showing footage from recent training exercises. Korthak warriors were practicing human-style ambush tactics, learning to use terrain and misdirection instead of relying on brute force. The results were impressive, but Vex could see that his people were still uncomfortable with strategies that felt like running away from a fight. "Your species has natural advantages that humans lack," Patricia continued, "but you've been using those advantages as a crutch. You approach every problem by trying to be stronger than it. Humans approach every problem by trying to be smarter than it. When you combine Korthak's strength with human creativity, the results are extraordinary." The door opened and Commander Rick Patterson entered with a datapad full of reports. Rick was Patricia's deputy, a lean man with graying hair who had spent 15 years developing human military training programs. His specialty was adapting human tactics for alien physiology, and he had become fascinated by the challenge of teaching Deathworld species how to fight like humans. "General, we've received the analysis from the Federation War College," Rick reported. "The joint human Korthak teams are outperforming pure Korthak units by an average of 300% in combat simulations. The improvement rate is unprecedented." Beck studied the data with a mixture of pride and concern. His warriors were becoming more effective, but they were also becoming less recognizably Korthak. The humans were changing everything about how his species approached warfare, survival, and their place in the galaxy. "What do the other Federation species think of these developments?" Vex asked. Rick exchanged a look with Patricia before answering. "The Zephyrians are fascinated but terrified. They've started requesting human advisors for their own defense forces, but they're also worried about what happens when everyone in the galaxy learns to fight like humans. The Neptari are impressed but confused. They can't understand why anyone would want to become more dangerous. The Chitauri are studying human hive mind tactics and trying to incorporate them into their own social structures." "And the Federation Council?" Vex pressed. "They're calling emergency sessions every week," Patricia admitted. "Half of them want to restrict human expansion into Federation space. The other half want to hire human military advisors for every world in the galaxy. Everyone agrees that humanity has changed the balance of power permanently." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the Federation's new director of interspecies military cooperation. Jennifer was a small woman with sharp eyes and an academic background, but she had become one of the galaxy's foremost experts on Deathworld species. Her report on human capabilities would be distributed to every civilized world in the Federation. "Captain Thorne, General Lee," Jennifer greeted them as she settled into her chair. "I wanted to discuss the final sections of my analysis before it goes to the Federation Council. Some of the conclusions are going to be controversial." She activated her own holographic display, showing comparative data on every known Deathworld species. The humans appeared at the top of every category related to adaptability, tactical innovation, and survival capability. "The evidence is clear," Jennifer began. Humans are not just another Deathworld species. They are the ultimate Deathworld species. Every other race we've studied, including the Korthak, evolved to survive specific environmental challenges. Humans evolved to survive challenge itself. She showed images of Earth's diverse environments and the way humans had adapted to all of them. Most Deathworld species become specialists. They develop specific traits that help them survive in their particular environment. Humans became generalists. They developed the ability to adapt to any environment, any threat, any challenge. Vex studied the data with growing unease. Dr. Walsh, what exactly are you saying about humanity's place in the galaxy? I'm saying that every assumption we've made about galactic civilization is wrong, Jennifer replied bluntly. We've organized the Federation around the idea that some species are naturally dominant and others need protection. We assumed that physical superiority translated to overall superiority. Humans have proven that intelligence and adaptability are more important than size and strength. She showed tactical analyses of recent conflicts where human advisors had been involved. In every case, forces using human-inspired tactics had achieved victory against numerically and technologically superior enemies. The implications are staggering, Jennifer continued. If other species adopt human military doctrine, traditional concepts of warfare become obsolete. If they adopt human survival strategies, traditional concepts of environmental limitation disappear. If they adopt human social organization, traditional concepts of species hierarchy collapse. Rick leaned forward in his chair. Dr. Walsh, are you suggesting that humans will eventually dominate the galaxy? I'm suggesting that humans have already begun to dominate the galaxy, Jennifer corrected. Not through conquest, but through example. Every species that encounters humanity starts trying to become more like humans. The Korthak are learning human tactics. The Zephyrians are studying human art and culture. The Neptari are experimenting with human technology. The Chitauri are copying human social structures. Patricia nodded thoughtfully. It's not intentional on our part. Humans aren't trying to conquer anyone, we're just being ourselves. And apparently being human is so effective that everyone else wants to copy us. The question, Jennifer said, is what happens when everyone in the galaxy has learned to think like humans? Will we still have distinct species, or will we all become variations on the human template? Vex considered this possibility with deep concern. The Korthak had defined themselves by their physical superiority for millions of years. If that superiority no longer mattered, what would they become? There is another possibility, Vex said slowly. Perhaps instead of everyone becoming like humans, we all become something new. Humans have shown us that our old limitations were self-imposed. Maybe the future of the galaxy is not human dominance, but human-inspired evolution. The room fell, silent as everyone considered the implications. The galaxy was changing faster than anyone had expected, driven by humanity's casual demonstration that most of the universe's rules were actually suggestions. Captain Thorne, Patricia said finally, what do you think your people will choose? Will they try to remain traditionally Korthak, or will they embrace these new possibilities? Vex looked out the window at Korthak and human soldiers working, together, sharing techniques that made both species more effective than either could be alone. The sight still felt strange, but it no longer felt wrong. I think, Vex said carefully, that my people will choose to survive. And if survival means learning from humans, then that is what we will do. The Korthak have always been pragmatic about survival. He paused, watching a young Korthak warrior successfully complete a complex human-designed training exercise that would have been impossible using traditional Korthak methods.